think what prompted this particular attendance was initially a call-in, which was subsequently withdrawn. I think it was actually I that offered to you as chairman, not only to come to this meeting, or for that matter, any other meeting of your committee at any time, to respond to any issues that may be of concern to your members. I think the first thing to say is that, again, for the benefit of the newer members, there is a sort of bit of a history here. I think the decision to implement a pilot scheme in the Malvern and Uttlesford district was made around 2006 and implemented around 2006-07. Since then, we have made a decision to roll out a further evolution, a further iteration of the park night light switch off in Chelmsford and in Braintree, Chelmsford city area and Braintree district. Now, can I first of all explode a myth that appears to be appearing in the media and the press? This decision is not for review. The decision at Chelmsford and Braintree has been made. It was the subject of a call-in, and the call-in was withdrawn. It is therefore and has been implemented, and it will not be changed other than in aspects of detail. And I made that clear in response to the call-in as well. In relation to the planned further rollout into other districts across Essex, that is the subject of consultation. I have not made a final decision on any of those districts, or the A127 or the A13, but I am consulting, as I made clear, not on the issue of principle, but on the issue of what exceptions or exemptions from the general policy of switching off park night lights, and that is what I am consulting on. So, it seems, Stephen, you're awash with water. Information about electricity and street lights. So, what we are engaged in is a consultation, not about the policy. And what I want to share with you, which is in your background papers, is that as far as Essex is concerned, this issue has been very thoroughly addressed. In fact, it's been continually addressed since 2007. So we've been in consultation for about 6 years on the subject of park night switch-offs. From being a council that actually pioneered this idea, we are now lagging behind our neighbours. Hertfordshire has completely achieved the switch off, actually, of virtually all of its lights. It's doing it with photovoltaic cells. It doesn't have the central control switch out that we have, and I believe it's switched off virtually every night other than on the sort of main apron. Our neighbour to the north, Suffolk, has implemented it. Ipswich has a nighttime economy, I would have suggested, pretty well as good as Chelmsford's, or Basildon's, or Harlow's. It's implemented it, without apparently too much difficulty. In fact, it's been applauded, and Hertfordshire, for example, has just reviewed the matter after a year of its success and concluded that it has been an overwhelming success and saved that council about 1.3 million a year, slightly more than ours, because they're switching them back on again at 6 AM and not 5 AM, so they get an extended period of switch off. So Essex is different. Essex has chosen to wait. It has chosen to get it right, and it's chosen to use a series of exemptions from the switching off arrangements. And it's also got the central control over the switching of the lights, which gives it inherently greater flexibility. So if we make some dramatic mistake, we can override it from the centre and grant an exemption, not just before we roll it out, but during the course of reviewing the efficacy of the switching out of lights in that particular district or in that particular locality. So I think, in a sense, Essex, by waiting, has got some greater flexibility and greater options. Now, I would secondly say, as far as exemptions are concerned, we do have experience of this. Malden and Uttlesford were actually very good learning experiences. Now, the people who say they're so different from any other district, well, you know, they may be, but other councils have managed it in Ipswich, in Hertfordshire throughout. And we, I think, have learned, and from further discussions with Chelmsford, Chelmsford is a pretty good microcosm, actually, of Essex as a whole. It's got its urban part, and it's got an extensive rural part. So Chelmsford is a good template, a good microcosm of the whole of Essex. So we've learned further from the discussions and deliberations over Chelmsford and over Braintree. Braintree has three or four significant towns, including Braintree and Whitton. It also has vast rural tracts. So again, it's a reasonable illustration. Take the two together and the two more rural districts, we've got a pretty good handle on the situation in Essex as a whole. And what we have developed as a consequence of that is a series of criteria for exemptions. They've been worked up with the discussion with those councils and with Essex Police and with other agencies. And they're pretty robust. And I can tell you that I can't actually swear to having done that with Malden and Uttlesford, but I can tell you at Chelmsford and Braintree, I have not intervened as a politician in that process. In other words, and I think it's right that I don't, actually. I think the criteria should be as objective as possible. So officers have handled the areas of exceptions. And I think as far as possible, I'd like to keep it that way. I realise if we have problems in any given district, we may. And so the exemptions and the ability to switch off give us, I believe, a degree of sensitivity to people's needs, to the nighttime economy, to where people have to congregate. And they also, the switching off devices that we have give us better control over the lights and the ability to retract from a position much more easily than if we implemented it as per, for example, Hertfordshire and our earlier model that we used at Malden and Uttlesford. The third thing I want to say is the legal process for decisions to roll this out. I used a cabinet member action to make the decision for Chelmsford and Braintree, and it was a key decision. Now, whether or not it's a key decision, or whether or not I really need to do this, or is it an operational issue, is neither here nor there. I will use the same process to decide, if I do decide, to roll out for each of the other districts. So each one will be subject to a cabinet member action. It will give an opportunity for people to see exactly what we are proposing by way of exemptions, and exactly how that implements out and the timing of it. So I hope, Mr. Chairman, you will agree that I'm being as transparent and as I possibly should be. Now, can I just deal with some popular myths, and then I'll open it for, or allow you to open it, Mr. Chairman, for discussion. First of all, why don't we use LED? The answer is, the LED technology is not perfected. It is a continuing and evolving situation. We don't know how long LED lamps last. We don't know if they're expensive. We know that. The technology changes. and to roll it out across the county of Essex would cost £31 million, which I don't actually have, and nor can I see any realistic opportunity of getting. That is not to say we will not use LED at the appropriate junctures. We will clearly want to experiment with it. We want to use it with sensitivity, and we recognise that it may provide additional flexibility. But it is not an instant solution. And that was actually one of the pretexts for calling in this thing. I mean, it just simply can't be done. Now, the second myth is whether we should switch some lights out altogether. In other words, why don't we go down a road and say, take 1 in 2 of the lights out? Well, that is something, again, which I think we need to be selective about. We need to look at later. We need, first of all, to move forward on the principle and get the principle accepted that lights are going to be switched out for part of the night. Right across the county of Essex, that is going to happen, subject to, of course, the exceptions. But again, I believe that we may be able to look at that in places because we do have different lighting standards in different parts of the county and in different locations, even within a district. Some of the newer estates have so many lights, it's just unbelievable. And we could, in my view, we need to have a look at what the lighting standards ought to be. The danger of simply taking out 1 in 2 or 2 out of 3 is you get a mottled effect on the road, and that can be actually dangerous to drivers. So what I want to do is to get over the hurdle of every district having its lights switched out between midnight and 5 a.m. Not all of the lights, but most of the lights. About 80% is what we're aiming to achieve, if we can. It may vary district by district. That is what we'd like to try and achieve. So it is, the third myth is that we're not switching out every light. We're keeping on, if you like, about 20% of the lights. And that would be what we, by experience, I mean, it does vary district by district, but by experience, that is probably what we're going to end up doing. As I have said, I think our neighbours have done this quite successfully. Everyone says that their place is different to Malden Uttersford, but there is actually no evidence of that. And when it comes to exemptions, we will judge these issues by evidence-based, not by opinions. People can have opinions about whether a street, or whether a footway, or whether a lane through a park should have its lights retained. They can have opinions about that. I respect their opinions, but I'm not making decisions based upon opinions. I'm going to base it on actual evidence. And if there is evidence of the need to congregate in places, for example, Chelmsford Railway Station, if there is evidence that you need to actually have the lights on, which there clearly is, between 12 and 5, then evidence will rule the day, not opinions. And I'd just like to say 2 more things. First of all, I don't think it actually helps when the leader of a council writes to all the other leaders of other councils in Essex, urging them to reject this idea. That initiative came from Harlem Council. It wasn't even sent to me. Now that is not terribly helpful in the context of trying to work in collaboration. I remain willing to work at all times with each district right up to the point of implementation. And I've confirmed that, as it happens, because I was asked directly by Tendering and by Cllr. I've confirmed that point to them. If any other council wants to ask me, well, they can take it as read, they don't need to ask. We will work bilaterally with each council, each of the major district and borough councils, for them to continue to examine our proposals and to continue to make cases, if they wish, for exemptions. But those exemptions will be judged objectively, preferably by officers using criteria, and they will be evidence-based and not opinion-based. And finally, you'll allow me the indulgence to quote an email which I received this morning. I do get a lot of emails, by the way, on this. Not all complimentary. Most of them are pretty complimentary, but not all of them. This one I thought was pretty good. And I'm going to read it to you, because it actually makes the case for me. And it's from a resident of Chelmsford. The resident of Chelmsford says, I'm a resident of Chelmsford and fully support the council's decision to switch off lights overnight. I support this initiative for a number of reasons. One, it demonstrates a real desire to save money and enable other essential services to continue as a result. Lights off equals more police, for example. Makes perfect sense. Two, environment. The council is taking a lead in demonstrating how we can all save energy. This won't benefit us, but for anyone with children, I would think this must register as a benefit. Three, light pollution. A modern problem that switching off lights helps reduce. People in rural communities have managed with dark nights for years. It is hard to understand why dark nights seem such a shock to people in cities. Four, nighttime economy. Let's be generous and assume 20% of the Chelmsford population work unsocial hours. Should 20% of people outweigh the benefits to the other 80%?
6 years on, suddenly a bombshell has actually hit large parts of Essex without really any warning, although it's cold-calling consultation period. We're already told that the principle of the matter is set and it will not be changed. Now, as far as I gather in places like Hertfordshire, there was very extensive consultation, there was a programme of education, and perhaps it might have been better if that approach would have been adopted if Rodney wanted to get his way. He will get his way because he's already told us that. In regards to emails, I'm sure that his email was written by a man. Many people who have written to me, many women, many elderly people, may perceive fear, but they have a very different view. And it would be interesting to know how Rodney actually needs to actually address that genuine fear that people perceive of their lights going out. Might be worthwhile in his mind, but at the end of the day, that's something that needs to actually be overcome. The next thing is that he said that he was expelling myths, but kept saying that he wasn't sure about the LED, the partial switch off. He kept saying these were myths, but we couldn't use them because we didn't know. Well, how are they myths if you don't know and you're not actually exploring those policies? So my second question is, why aren't these possibilities actually being explored? He says that he is concerned about the way in which Harlow went about matters. Well, equally, Harlow is very concerned about how Essex County Council has gone about matters, simply telling us that it will be imposition. And the principle of the matter was taken in 2007, and that is it. Now, that is a very unsatisfactory position democratically, because in most circumstances, if Essex wants to work with the districts and boroughs, then surely more consultation rather than some kind of ultimatum that's actually applied, get your consultation about certain areas that give you concern by the end of September, and by the way, we're doing it in the new year anyway. Why wasn't there a more gentle way of actually consulting and involving, rather than this kind of hand-fisted way of simply saying, right, this is happening in Chelmsford now, this is happening somewhere else by the end of the year, this is happening in Harlow in the new year. And I think it's that which also caused a lot of concern. So all in all, I am not convinced. And the other thing, as far as finance is concerned, this authority has a view about the council tax. My view is very different. When you talk about economics, you talk about public good. What's going to happen? Large numbers of people actually will start installing, presumably outside their own houses, lights at their own expense. Where's the electricity being saved? Where is the money being saved? All that happens is the kind of mealy-mouthed approach towards financing this, and you then actually have large numbers of people in Essex having to face additional electricity bills because the public service is failing. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there are 4 questions. Fear of crime. So you're sure about technology, imposition rather than consultation and finance.
I think the first thing I'd say to Councillor Danvers is that the process didn't start when he became a member of this authority. I mean, actually, we have been engaged in very extensive review and consultation before, with due respect, you were a member of this authority, Councillor Danvers. And I think you ought to recognise that that is actually quite extensive. There have been very extensive reviews in which the members of the equivalent of this committee actually made some very, very clear recommendations which Essex accepted, which, with due respect, Hertfordshire didn't accept. It's gone about it slightly differently. I think our model is an improvement. So the first thing I would say to your third point about the principle and more consultation is that I think there has been extensive consultation. I think Chelmsford and Braintree will confirm that we extensively in fact, they all told your leader that they had indeed had extensive consultation, and Malden and Uttlesford said they were very happy with what had happened. So, all I was saying is it's slightly difficult to try to lobby support from districts on an issue which actually it is a county council responsibility. I want to work in collaboration with districts. That is my objective, and but it doesn't help is the only point I was making when you get this sort of behind the scenes activity. Now let me deal with the other 3 points that you made. The fear of crime. Yeah, I think it is a major issue. But it's one of those nebulous things. You can say people have got a fear of crime, and I can say, yeah, I think they do, particularly ladies, particularly elderly people living on their own. I'm sure that is the case. But I'm not sure I can give you any reassurance about that, other than to say we have tested this point very, very carefully. And the fact is that actually the fear of crime is falling, generally. And there was no rise in the fear of crime in the areas that we have so far rolled it out. And actually crime statistics, I know that crime generally has fallen, but crime statistics as a whole show that there is a continuing fall, if not a greater fall in those areas that have park night lighting. That is confirmed by Hertfordshire, and it is confirmed by Suffolk. So don't just take it from me. And actually, with due respect to Harbour, you ought to have been aware, you're very close to the Hertfordshire border, and I would have thought you would have been aware that this was likely to be rolled out. As to finance, well, I hear what Councillor Danvers' view is about finance. I've seen it actually all before in his party. This is a tangible approach to try to save both carbon emissions and money. But maybe the better approach is what his leader of his national party is doing, is having a freeze on all electricity. I don't know. I suspect that that ain't going to work. And I suspect that we're going to see supply and demand cause electricity prices to continue to rise. That is what every pundit is forecasting. And even if an exemption was made, it probably won't be made to the local authorities or the industrialists. So there you go. This is a tangible way of trying to save energy, and I think a better solution than having a freeze on electricity prices.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you mentioned Councillor Bass mentioned the previous scrutiny we did on this subject, which I chaired. And I want to be both helpful and perhaps slightly unhelpful to the town member on this, because without a doubt, the overwhelming view of that Scrutiny Committee was that levels of crime had not risen, they had fallen faster than the county average in the two pilot areas, and that road traffic accidents had not increased. And therefore there could be no objection to rolling out the programme through the idea of a central management system, which had already been piloted in Little Seven and Rochester. The possibilities with the central management system is that you could adopt different solutions for different areas. But our committee found, with evidence from Mr. Tovey and his other colleagues at the time, that this was dependent on the tarification structure of the energy suppliers, and that, for instance, in my own area, we, I think, will go along with the switch off, but we don't want it to start until after 1 o'clock in the morning, because we have an extensive train and bus network still operating until that time. And that is something which has been shared by Conservative Hill Parish Council, for instance. However, it appears to me that the fine-tuning that the new system, which involved a very considerable expenditure, some say 3 million, some say more, has not been utilised to the full, because there have been no negotiations, as I understand it, with the energy suppliers for a metered tariff, which would allow turn-off for a period of less than 5 hours. I asked this question to Councillor Bass's predecessor, but one, Tracy Chapman, in full council about 18 months ago, and after a certain amount of doubt, I think she said that no such talks had taken place. So, whilst acquiescing in the general switch off and the approach which Essex has generally taken, I do think there is more element of fine-tuning that needs to be done, and I don't think the intervening period of 4 years was utilised to its full in that regard. And I very much welcome Councillor
Bass's actually acknowledged his personal involvement in chairing the earlier scrutiny work, which was done very effectively, and actually did cause us to change our view about something. So it does show that we are not rigid as a council in our view, and we do respond to reasoned arguments, and they made some very helpful and reasoned arguments. I mean, let me deal first of all with the maps. I do think it is important. I will try to make available as quickly as we can in each district and borough, which is our partners in this approach, the availability of maps. I'm sure we've got them here for members of the council to have a look at, if we could try and do that. It is important that you do actually understand where the lights are and where we're proposing to switch them off. I think that is a perfectly reasonable proposition. I think we're just actually doing this progressively to roll out. We do know where they are in Chelmsford and Braintree, clearly, and Malden and Uttlesford. And as we go to each district, we haven't yet finally settled the maps. But certainly, you ought to be able to see a map of a district and with all its lights plotted onto it. I think that is a perfectly reasonable proposition, and I would certainly think that that if we're having a mature discussion with districts, district by district, that is an essential part of their armoury for that discussion. So I take that point on board, and I'm sure my officers will try to facilitate that. We can't obviously easily do that universally across the entire population. I mean, we just simply can't do it. But of course, if people are producing evidence, the evidence should be there anyway. And actually, you know, it isn't that is what we should be trying to do, not actually pointing out where everything is and where we've got to and having that commented upon. I think there is a degree of spontaneity that is needed in this consultation as well. But I do take the point that it's not terribly helpful to the districts or to the county councillors in commenting upon this, and we'll try and rectify it. What I would say about, I would simply repeat, I think we have to get the rollout of the principle of switching lights off. And that has to be done, but I remain open to future flexibility and to arguments about timings, precise timings, whether it's one light in two in perpetuity, in other words, it's throughout, and maybe it's some additional exemptions. I think that's the way it ought to work. I mean, there is quite a big piece of work here that we have to do in this implementation. But it is a softer implementation than the Hertfordshire implementation. It is genuinely trying to use the experience that we've worked up. And as I say, I will certainly be responsive to reasoned arguments. I'm not responsive to people who write to me saying, some people have written in very unsavoury terms, but others have written saying we are opposed to the principle of switching off any light. I mean, that just gets big. Because this is quite a clear policy now, and it's being shared, I hope, right across the country. Even the Highways Agency is looking at it, I believe, on the M1, on the M25. I mean, roads is another issue, which is why I'd like to pilot it on the A13 and A127, if I may just use that as an illustration. I mean, the M25 is the busiest road in Europe, I think, in both stretches of it, and great tracts of it, ironically, I think, through Hertfordshire, do not have any lights at all, because they rely upon the headlights of the cars. And yet some people say to me, you can't switch out lights on the A13 or the A127 at all, because of the danger of fog or whatever. Well, maybe the flexibility we have to do is to put some more back again if there's heavy fog, and that is where we have the flexibility to slightly change. What I would urge, however, is on this issue of flexibility, is in order to get the tariff changes, and to answer the point about the tariff does work out as a lamp burning its wattage or whatever it is, times the hours that it's on. And there are different tariffs according to a code which basically starts from midnight. Now, I will probably be hesitant about switching off any light before midnight. I think that, you know, that would be very controversial. But whether it's 5 or whether it's 6 or whether it's 1 to 6 instead of 12 to 5 would obviously have a code which my understanding from Mr. Tovey would actually be capable of being registered with our electricity supply. So you do have the flexibility, provided we have the individuality of being able to switch the light, and sometimes they do work in clusters. And we do in principle have the ability for future flexibility as to timing. But I really do, in answer to Councillor Pond, I really do want to try to roll this out on the basis of 12 till 5. Because I think otherwise it gets complicated. And then we want to regard it not as finished business, but an ongoing discussion.